friends and fellow drivers, OG Transporter 828 here. So, you know what my biggest problem is? I'm going to share that with you really quickly, right? The biggest problem that I have is the fact that I started driving in the 20th century. We are in the 21st century. And, you know, the big challenge for me is how to explain to you how good it was that it used to be, but it's not like it won't ever happen again. And so my challenge is to get that across to you so that you can act accordingly. In other words, what I'm saying is, so yeah, I had it so good, and I can see how difficult it is for somebody right in through now to figure out how to conduct themselves properly in this trucking environment that we're in. So many things are so different today than it used to be, but there are just a few things that are the same, right? One thing that's always going to be the same is the fact that we are dealing with human beings, number one. That's the first thing. Number two, we're dealing with freight, moving freight from point A to point B. Okay? Number three, we're dealing with money for said services. This is what we do, right? That's not going to change. It just simply isn't. The people that we deal with have always been there doing what they do even today. Just that simple, right? Okay? And the money we deal with for the services that we're providing, that's not going to change. You could say, what are you talking about? Yes, it is. It changes all the time. We don't make as much money as you used to make in the 20th century here in the 21st century. Well, I see your point as far as that goes, but it is relative. In other words, it depends on what kind of company you find yourself with. If you get yourself with a great company, it's going to work out. You're going to make the relative amount of money, the same amount of money for the effort that you're putting in at the top of the scale. That really hasn't changed. It always used to be a thing where people could make $100 grand a year. It's just that $100 grand a year back in 1980 went a whole lot further than $100 grand a year goes right now. But you have to learn how to maximize and be a great steward of that money that you are getting, right? And so all I can do from where I sit for you is to put you into a place to give you the proper information so that you can be in the place to capitalize off of the information that I'm giving to you. That's it. That's it. Plain and simple. That's all I'm trying to do. So, what hasn't changed? The fact that we move freight from point A to point B. The fact that we deal with human beings and we ourselves are human beings. So people haven't changed. People like to be treated well, and some people could care less about how they treat you. That's okay. It's always been that way. You realize that. So that hasn't changed. Trucks themselves haven't really changed from the way it used to be. There are some aspects to trucks that will always remain the same. For instance, the fifth wheel on our combination Class 8 vehicles, right? 18 wheels, 10 wheels. It just depends on how you're looking at your life, you know, as far as that goes, right? Whether you're running super singles or you're not running super singles, 53 feet. It never used to be a 53-foot trailer, but it is now. Used to be, smaller trailers. Okay, great. We got all of that. But even the what people call automatic transmissions. That's not true. They're not automatic transmissions, not like you have in your car. There is no transmission fluid like you have in your car. Okay, you know that red stuff, and you have a transmission fluid dipstick in some cars. I know I have a Lincoln Navigator, and it doesn't have a dipstick for the transmission for you to check the transmission fluid, because of the way they make things now. But transmission fluid is pretty much almost like power steering fluid is. It's going to be red in color, right? And we don't have that. We have a truck transmission. It's just that the computer is doing the shifting for you. It has a clutch, it has a pressure plate, it has a throw-out bearing, it has all of the stuff that a manual shifted truck has always had. It has a truck transmission, 12 speed, 13 speed, 15 speed, 18 speed. You can get what you want, actually. So it's one of those things where it hasn't changed to that degree, right? But what has been added can complicate your lives. Computers, which were intended to make our lives better, tend to complicate our lives a whole lot. So that's one of the other aspects that has changed, but it hasn't changed a great deal. We still have to move this freight. Here's something else that has changed, and I got to tell you, I'm glad it has changed. The whole concept of the survival of the fittest, right, out here on the road. And here's what I mean by that. Back in the day, you drove as long as you could keep your eyes open. That's how far. That's what you did. That's what you did, right? And I got to tell you, I didn't see a whole bunch of accidents like I see today. And I understand why I see them today, and I want you to understand why you see them today. But back in the day, the way trucks were made and you had to do manual shifting, it was work, and there was no two ways about it, and there was no easy way out, right? And you were either rolling in a cab over, or you were rolling in the long nose, a conventional, right? That's what you were doing. That's just how it was. So, okay, I get it. Well, that has changed a lot and brought a lot of people into this industry who would never have come here to start with, because it looks like it's easy money. There was a time where they used to say, you will never have disc brakes like you do in a car. You would never have disc brakes on a truck because you can't make them strong enough to stop the truck. You will never have a truck that can shift on its own, because that concept was something from the future that made no sense. It was fantasy, okay, that was being discussed at that point for a lot of people, except some really crafty engineers, right? So people figured it out, understood what they could do. The computer chip got invented. The silicone chip, happened. And once that happened, it opened the door for a lot of things. And so now we have what we have. We have a computer with redundant systems that are tied in to our cameras, and our cameras are regulating all manner of things through the computer programs, right? Our speed, our variance on and off the road, lane management, proximity management, all that kind of stuff. That's what's going on. And so you get visual and you get binary code information that's going around and doing all this stuff. Well, you know that a truck actually doesn't need that to drive down the road. Neither does a car. Neither does a motorcycle. But we've advanced, and that's what we started doing. Okay, so here we are. So we got some things that changed. We have some things that have not changed. As long as you have people, the human element can be managed. And I want you to understand that. And you have to become the manager of yourself, and you have to become the best manager that you can possibly be of yourself, which means you have to constantly do something that I call mirror time, right? In life, you have to do that. You got to spend time in the mirror looking at yourself and asking yourself the hard questions. If you're not asking yourself the hard questions, there's going to be no one else. There's going to be no one else who will ever ask you the hard questions except a super trusted loved one who knows you almost as good as you know yourself. That's how that is. So unless you start spending some mirror time where you're asking yourself the tough questions and trying to figure out things in your life, until you get to that point, you will not become better than what you currently are. All right? That goes with anything in life. And just keeping it here, that goes with anything as far as truck driving is concerned. You won't become a better truck driver if you don't ever challenge yourself. If what you do all the time because you have issues with backing up, and all you ever do is do pull-throughs, if that's all you ever do, you'll never be any better than that. You understand what I'm saying to you? In professional prize fighting, they say you're only as good as your last fight. Last time you won, that's just how it is. Last time you lost, if that was your last fight, you got to come back from that. If all you're ever doing is pulling through because you don't want to back up, because you have a problem with backing up, if you don't challenge yourself, you're just going to be a loser for the rest of your time in driving trucks, because all you're going to want to do is pull through. But then what does that do to you? Because you can't pull through at the dock. The only place you can pull through is if you're running a flatbed and you're in the middle. Okay? And imagine that. That's how I learned how to drive flatbed, hauling steel. But the first thing that my guy taught me how to do was to back up with the flatbed. Do you see why I am the way I am? Okay? Because I'll never be better than what I currently am if I don't do things to challenge myself. And that's what it's all about. Just plain and simple. So from day one, the very first thing I did, my guy had me bag up. He didn't have me drive forward. Anybody can pull that one off, almost. And that same kind of anybody's can also back up, almost. So always challenge yourself so that you can be better. And you'll make more money because you have more to offer. Plain and simple. And that's what happens here in this capitalistic society. So I'm glad you took the time to listen to me. Hopefully this will help you again. And we'll talk with you later on, all right? All right. Be safe. Have a good one. Bye.